day dawns, and I am practicing my purpose once again. It is fresh and it is fruitful.
All right, everybody, it's 6:33, so we're going to get started here. We want to make sure, like we said, that we're always respecting your time and bringing some really dense information and opportunities to learn, and then getting you out of here at a good time. So we're going to get going. Before I turn the time over to our first speaker, I wanted to give a quick announcement about next month's Village Voices. It will be Wednesday, May 25th. And we'll be joined by a special guest, Alan Graham from Community First. Community First is the village in Austin, Texas that we've studied extensively, that we've drawn a lot of inspiration from, and that was really kind of a first of its kind, that Alan just started out of nowhere and he's now scaling to over 1,000 homes. So a really good one to put on the calendar. Again, that'll be Wednesday, May 25th. I'll send out a calendar invite. We'll have a Facebook event again. Just wanted to put it on your radar, make sure that you knew you should be at that one too. All right, so getting started, we're going to do what we always do with Village Voices. We'll start out with a lived experience that'll be shared with us. We'll move into a quick update about the village, and then we'll turn it over to our guest speaker, who will try to help answer some of the questions that are brought up from our first speaker. So I'm going to turn it over to Russell Pearson. Russell is both a graduate of the Other Side Academy and is a recent graduate of the University of Utah, receiving his bachelor's degree in social work. He's in the process of pursuing a master, and he was our very first, what we're calling, village coach. So that's a role I'm going to talk about in a second, my village update. Before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to Russell. Take it away, Russ.
Thank you, Samuel. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my story. And I guess I'll begin with my childhood growing up. I was raised by a loving family. I was taught right from wrong. I had a normal childhood. And when I finished high school, I decided to join the military. And when I left for the military, I was sent to Europe. I spent time in Germany, and I started to make some poor choices and started to make compromises. And even though I was telling myself, you know, I was doing the right things and being a good person, the truth was I wasn't. And eventually those things catch up to you somewhere in your life. Whether it's sooner or later, they always will catch up with you. And so from the time I came home from the military until the time I started using drugs, I was in my later 30s. And all of those choices eventually caught me. And that's the kind of lifestyle I was living. I had got myself into some serious trouble and reached a point where I was either going back to prison or write a letter to the Other Side Academy. And that's what I did. And I like to think by the grace of God, or however anyone wants to think of it, it saved my life. And that's why you'll see behind me the bench as a reminder of you know, the opportunity that I was given. And every day that I come in here, I always look at that and tell myself that was my opportunity to do something different. And so during that time, I was making those poor choices and in and out of jail and prison. Being a veteran, I was given the opportunity to be in their 3 housings that they have for veterans, homeless housing. And I was kicked out of all of them because the VA gave me the tools and the opportunities and the resources I needed to be successful, but I never used them because I was not in a culture where I was surrounded by like-minded people. And so when I would get my veterans housing, I would end up selling drugs out of my house or apartment, or I would be in there partying with people and breaking the rules. And then I would be kicked out and back homeless again and living on the streets or trying to find somewhere to stay. And so the difference between the housing that's out there and what we're creating in the village, I feel like is different because we're creating a culture of accountability and love and trust. And that's what I learned at the Other Side Academy. I learned what connection really meant and what it's like to have people hold me accountable and have to hold myself accountable. And it was a very structured environment, and I was surrounded by community and culture that were there 24 hours a day and gave me the continued support that I needed to be successful instead of just giving me a voucher for housing and then nothing, no incentive or anyone to tell me how to keep it. And so what I've seen already within our village, with our 4 villagers that we currently have, is that culture is already happening. And we're seeing the accountability and the love and the honesty. And so I've already seen proof that it's working. And I've seen proof that it's working versus what I did that didn't work. And I think that's an amazing thing to be a part of. And I'm really excited to be involved with this. And that's all I have, Samuel.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for being willing to share with us, and also for, I think really nicely teeing up what we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to try to pull a question out of there that I think Tim is going to address nicely, which is, really at the core of this, it's how do you make a house a home? How do you take a building with 4 walls and turn it into a place where people can thrive and make connections, where they feel safe and secure? And so we're going to get back to that question of how we make a house a home. But first, we're going to jump over for a quick village update. So we talked last month about, we're still in some of the political processes, especially working out some of the details with the city to make sure that we're both in a good place. We both feel good about the agreement. And at that point, that's when it'll go to the city council. So we're not quite to that step. But in the meantime, we've been doing what we do best. What we do at the other side is we build culture and we help grow potential. And so that's what we've been doing regardless of anything else that's been going on. So this right here is that welcome neighborhood I talked a little bit about last month. The welcome neighborhood is the transitional opportunity for those who are entering the village to get safe, to get stabilized, and to really learn the culture that will make the village so successful. So what we did is we went and identified a facility to create a temporary welcome neighborhood where we can start doing our programming and start working together on growth paths. So on the left, you see the before picture. That's when we found this building. On the right, that's what it looks like today, just barely taken, brand new, fresh. You might be wondering, how did we do this? Well, I'll tell you. We rolled up our sleeves and we went to work ourselves. So in classic therapeutic community fashion, we took ownership over our facility and we made it our own. We had our neighbors, we had our staff, we had a few volunteers there, and we spent a day painting the insides and touching things up and really creating that sense of community and that sense of ownership over the space. That this isn't just a space that's here for us to use, it's our space that we're making ours through our work. Another awesome development is the beginning of our social enterprise, our cookie business. So last month, the Other Side Academy gave us an order for 300 cookies for the ribbon cutting for their newest facility. So we're in the process of getting ready for that. We've been in the kitchen practicing, trying different recipes, trying to start building a system so that we can turn this thing into a business. And again, what's so cool about this is that all of this time is time spent on preparing the way for others to walk where we're walking now. And I think that's what's really driving so much power in our group, is that we know that what we're doing every day is creating that future for others. Also the village coach role. So I mentioned that Russell was our first hire as a village coach. We have 3 more. We have Amanda, we have Robbie, and we have Jesse, all 3 of which were also graduates of the academy. They are there. The village coach is almost kind of like an internal case management role, where we can plug you into case management and into really robust mental health care, which everyone needs access to. But we also understand that there are other aspects to whole person change to help people live fulfilled lives, things like health and wellness, networks of support, income stability. So these village coaches, their job is to build strong, lasting relationships, friendships, where they can start creating shared goals together and start moving people forward. Over the last month, we've just seen some incredible success from having them join our team. And last but definitely not least, if you know anything about the academy, this is going to look familiar to you. This last Friday was one of the best days of my life. We had our first bridge crossing where we inaugurated our first freshman class. So there they are holding their shirts. That paper you see, that paper is where our commitments are written. You make commitments to the village and to each other about how you're going to live, about the standards we're going to live to, about how we're going to keep the community safe, and about what we do when we make mistakes, how we fix those with each other, and how we improve. So what was really special is that this is both a moment for growth. Each of these individuals created a growth plan and decided on some goals for themselves, worked really hard for a few weeks to get there, and that this is a signal of advancement. The other awesome thing is that our whole community crossed this bridge together. So me and everybody else who works as staff made the same commitments to the village and to each other and crossed the bridge with our own growth plans. Because in this group, we believe we're all equal and that we're all progressing towards the same goals, towards personal growth and towards greater connection. So I hope that is exciting to see. I know that, sometimes it feels like things aren't moving along, and what we want to show you is things could not be moving more. Every single day we are building the village, and we couldn't be more excited about it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn us over to the main event, Mr. Tim Stay. He is CEO of the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village, and he's going to talk to us about making a house a home.
Thank you, Samuel. Let me share my screen here. I can work this out. I really appreciate Russell. Thank you for your openness to share your story and to share the experiences you've had. And it really motivates us to be able to offer these services to more people. All right. Now I think I can share it there. All right, does that come up? Great. So before we get started into kind of our design, I want to share a little personal story to emphasize that as a society, we really aren't that far away from most people living in what today we would call tiny homes. This is a cabin in downtown Salt Lake. It still exists today. It was one of the very first cabins built in Salt Lake City. It was built by William Henry Duell, and he happens to be my wife's ancestor. And it's about 1,200 square feet, or not even that much. It's about 300 square feet in size. It was just a one-room cabin. They had the bedroom and the kitchen and the living room all in one room with a pot-belly stove. It's today been restored and salvaged, but we often see the beautiful mansions, historic mansions like the Other Side Academy is in, and think that's how most people live. Very few people lived in mansions like that. Most of the people that came and organized with the pioneers lived in houses like that, and often for much of their lives. And over years they built and expanded, but especially even those of lower income, often this is all they could afford when thinking of affordable housing. And it really isn't that far away. My parents were born in the 1920s, and this house, used to exist on the road from Draper to Riverton on that main road. It doesn't exist anymore, but this is the house where my grandparents lived with 11 of their children. And when my dad was born, he was the 12th. They then moved into a larger place, but this is about 400 square feet, and 13 people lived in this home, if you can imagine it. I had a chance to go in before it was torn down. My mom, if you look at this is in Los Angeles in about 1927. Down in the corner, my mom's a little blonde-haired girl. Her dad, my grandpa, when they were born, he had been able to acquire a small piece of land in a remote canyon in Los Angeles, and all he had on there was a tent. And so when my mom was born, they were living in a tent, and slowly each year he'd build a little. You can see he's about halfway up building it, and the rest is still canvas and tent on the top part of it. And she talked about how this would be, um, there'd be just torrential water flowing through with all the holes in the canvas and the tent. But that's just one generation away of living in a tent, living in small homes, um, from my family to where, most of us live in very comfortable homes and are surprised at the size of this. As we started this project, we really said, let's see what the landscape is out there and who can we learn from and what best practices. I came across a small village that's under development. This is one of the graphics, and I think it really conveys the sense of community and neighborhood. It's called Penny Lane Village. It's outside of Durham, North Carolina, and it's a project by the sociology department of UNC. And they have with it a therapeutic garden for people with mental illness that they can come work in. And they're building this, there'll be about 15 homes in it, but it really conveys that sense of neighborhood and community that we really like. I had a chance to go out there, and this is their first home that they've built. And one of the things they've done really that we really liked is as they built their model home, they actually had people who had come from the streets spend nights, and they took surveys of what they liked, what they didn't, so they could modify the design. And they've been very generous with us in sharing their learnings with us, which we've tried to incorporate into our designs. We had a chance to go to Eden Village, which their first village had about 30 homes, and they took an old trailer park and put modular homes where the old trailers used to be. And it was a really appealing and beautiful, here's a standalone home for one of those. And we found that we really were drawn to what they had done. They made the insides really attractive. They had a separate bedroom, a bathroom, a kitchen, appliances, and we learned a lot. They made it a gated community. It's interesting that Eden Village is directly adjacent. They share a fence line with an elementary school, and we asked, has this been any issue? And in the 4 or 5 years that they've been open, they've never had any issues with security or safety between the elementary school and the village there. We had a chance to go to Community First. Like Samuel said, we'll get to hear from Alan Graham next month. He's been tremendously generous with sharing what they've learned at Community First. They have about 400 homes they started off. He's been doing street ministry with food, providing food through food trucks, and they still do through their nonprofit called Mobile Loaves and Fishes. And they realized that one of the big needs was permanent supportive housing. And so first, just through bootstraps, he said, let's see if I can get some trailers donated and in here. Later, they started building small homes. And some of the things that we learned there, many of their homes don't have a bathroom, and they have a shared bathroom among maybe 20 homes. And as we talked to the residents, and especially some of the elderly residents, they said, at 3 a.m., it's really tough to get up and go out to the community bathroom. And that helped us really make that decision of saying we really need to have a bathroom in each home. So it isn't a challenge. I know none of us would want to get up and have to go outside to use the restroom. We, in some of their newer models, here's one of their newer divisions, they do have the bathrooms built into the homes. And again, these are, they do have some stick built. They've had one 3D printed. Some of them are modular, like like you're seeing here, just like Eden Village. Um, One of the things that Russell said reminded me of this article. It just came out yesterday in the San Francisco Chronicle. San Francisco has spent millions trying to um, turn dilapidated hotels into homeless shelters, and it's been disastrous. And if any of you have the time, go read that article. It's really moving. It follows the story of Pauline, who's shown here. Um, Things are so bad that she has set up her tent inside of her room to protect her from the rodents and the insects that have just run rampant through there because of the squalor and despair. It isn't enough just to provide a home. It isn't enough just to provide a shelter, provide an apartment. You need to have that accountability. Just like with Russell said, if you don't have that accountability, just as he often, multiple times, wasn't able to stay in the veteran housing that was provided because he hadn't changed anything about his behaviors. And what it leads to is those who really are serious about wanting to change their lives don't have the opportunity like Pauline is struggling with here. We see other cities doing things. This is a tiny home in almost an encampment that is built along the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. And again, they're providing housing, but they're not providing that community accountability that Russell talked about that works so well for him. And they also, these are really, if you look inside, they're really just, they have a bed, a small heating element, and and some electricity, but it's not much more than a tough shed. We see a similar project being built in St. Louis, and our fear is that these projects, while they're getting people out of the elements, they're not helping people change their lives, and the same this same chaos that existed on the streets soon will exist in these camps or in these new tiny home villages, just like the San Francisco Chronicle's reporting in the hotels that have been converted in San Francisco. So one of we think it's really critical, not only do we provide warm and inviting place, but that we have that culture of accountability. And I know in later Village Voice webinars we'll talk more about that, but I wanted to just reinforce that point. So as we looked at kind of best practices, our guiding principle has come: would we want to live there? Is this a place? Can we build it in such a way? So let me just run through a few of the amenities that we have. Each one's going to have a bedroom. Again, these are all pictures from places that we visited that we thought this helps establish the type of decor and furnishing and look and feel that we're looking for. Each one has a bathroom that has a toilet, sink, and shower. We're looking for a kitchen that has all the amenities, fridge, microwave, sink, stove, oven, and then have a living area where you can have a guest, you could watch TV, have a place over, have a place to eat. And each place will have heat and AC with low energy use, high efficiency split units. We are looking at how do we bring sustainability into it, focusing on high energy efficient homes, insulation, the highest rated appliances. We're looking at low water use landscaping, but we still want to make the landscaping, we believe so much that the landscaping can help bring healing nurturing to an environment. And then we have one of our dreams is to be able to utilize solar power and reduce our energy use as much as possible. Alan Graham, who's speaking next month, said homelessness is caused by the catastrophic loss of family. And we really believe that by building our community, not only just building homes and having a large tract of homes, that we can create a sense of family, we can create a sense of community that brings people together, that brings them the ability to support each other and love each other. One of the services that we can do that is by, in our pilot phase, in our phase 1, we're going to build a medical and mental health clinic. It's going to have not only a community center, but medical, dental, mental health, and social services that will be on site. So those who need medication, those who need mental health services, those who have physical disabilities can get the treatment without having to try to figure out transportation, without trying to figure out how to go. And if someone doesn't show up for an appointment, it's just a short walk down the street that one of our village coaches can help remind them and get them there. So we think that will really help stabilize people who in the past may have been inconsistent with getting the care that they've needed. We also are really focused on our neighborhood design. This is a schematic of a neighborhood. You see how all the orange, these represent houses, are in a circle and face each other. Just kind of like that first graphic that I showed from Penny Lane. We really believe that breaking this larger community down into smaller communities of 20, 25 people, maybe even 30, really helps them feel like I'm part of this neighborhood. This is my block. This is my group. These are my people, and help them hold each other accountable and be able to deal and resolve issues as a neighborhood rather than rely on external authorities to solve that. We think it's really important to have a front porch, and that allows people who may have not been as social in the past have an opportunity to come out and say, I'm ready to interact with other people, sit on the porch, have a friend come by and sit by, and when they've had enough, they can go back inside and have their personal time. One of the things that's really been overwhelming is the outpouring of community support as they've felt this vision and felt, what can I do about it? And we built a team of architects and of contractors that is really overwhelming and really touching. We have the great privilege to be able to have Dave Dixon, who's got he's designed over 5 million square feet over his career. He's devoted a tremendous amount of time to helping us. He's overseen a team of really supportive and generous architects who've taken bits and parts of this, which are listed here. And we've really been so touched. And as we've shared our design philosophy and the things that matter to us, they've been very supportive of incorporating that into our designs. We also have what we call the Builders Brigade, and it's led by Lou Swain. He was a senior partner at Boyer for 33 years, and he's overseen a growing list of contractors. These are some that have raised their hand to date, who are saying, we want to help, we want to contribute. Homemade of Utah has said that they're willing to build one complete neighborhood with home builders from across the United States or across Utah, and we're so grateful for all of their very generous willingness to contribute, and really touched by their needs. And one of the exciting announcements is our very first home is going to be built by our very own social enterprise, the Other Side Builders, which is a social enterprise of the Other Side Academy. So students, much like Russell, who are still at the Academy, will help be building our very first home. We think that's really monumental to be able to have people who just a few years ago were incarcerated, helping those who are now on the streets be able to find a home. We hope that as we said, the loss of family. Margaret Mead said one of the oldest human needs is having someone to wonder where you are when you don't come home at night. And that, to me, that really conveys that sense of connection, of community, of support, of saying we care about you, what you do with your life, what we're expecting you to be accountable, we're expecting you to be part of this community, but we also care and love about you. And that's at the heart of what we're trying to do, is create this loving, supportive, caring community that will take care of those who haven't had enough of that in their life in the recent years. So just to reinforce, we're not building tiny homes, but we're building a village. And if you're interested in helping, reach out to us, and you can send us at build@theothersidevillage.com. We'd love to include you in those who are supporting what we're doing. I'll turn the time back to you, Samuel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for your willingness to share. And thank you, Russell, for sharing with us as well. Hopefully there was some really good information in there, some, good breakdown of where we're headed and what the village is going to look like when we get there, and how that structure is going to exist to make it so that people really can thrive and succeed there. Like Tim said, it's not just about having a house. It's about having all the other things that we ourselves know we need to live a fulfilled life. And that's really what we're searching for at the village. So that brings us to the end of the official program. Another quick announcement for next month's Village Voices. It will be on May 25th. 6:30 p.m. That's the fourth Thursday of the month, fourth Wednesday of the month, which is where it will always be. And we will be joined by Alan Graham, who is the founder and CEO of Community First, the village in Austin, Texas, that we've drawn a ton of inspiration from, that really proves that this idea is scalable. They were so successful in phase 1 that they're now rolling out phase 2 and phase 3, scaling past 1,000 homes. And so we cannot wait to hear from him. He's also just a really connected guy. He's a great storyteller. So we invite you all to join us for that. So we're going to move into the Q&A portion of our section here. This is where we like to invite anybody who would like to, who doesn't have the time to drop off. We'd love to have anybody who wants to stay. We also want to, this becomes a little bit less tightly formatted. And so those who have questions, please let us know. You can go ahead and throw them in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand and we will bring you on board to ask it.